with the B&C Commission on October 8th. And if by some horrible situation we're not ready, then would we be able to have a called meeting in November? Correct? Okay.
What time does that boards and commissions?
1 p.m.
1 p.m.?
Yeah, virtual.
Oh, okay.
Y'all go. So the only update, I did read I had read the John Boyle article that everything is stopped because of us. It's not the first time that we keep showing up in other people's meeting minutes. It's very interesting, and I still have to go back to the fact that I think they really want to, they really want to do something, and they really want to do it from this grassroots organization that of which we are. And I think they'll consider it to be a feather in their cap if they're able to implement some of our recommendations. And as we said in our last meeting, Stephanie Dahl's department already is implementing a lot of those recommendations. So with that in mind, if there's not anything else to discuss, we could go to the recommendations pages and see where we stand.
Okay, I've got the document pulled up. I can't remember. I know that there's been a number of people that have made edits since we last met, so I'm not sure if I should just start from the top or if there's a specific section I should jump to.
I've got some cataract issues, Patrick. Can you make it a little bigger?
Yes. How's that?
Oh, that's better. Thank you.
I'll make it a little
Even
wider
bigger.
so we can see the comments.
Oh, that's
Even bigger?
As big as you can make it. We don't need to see our little boxy faces so much.
How's this? And I will say, I believe if you hover over the meeting where you see the screen, there is a zoom tool there as well, where I
There
think
is.
you can go in further.
Yeah, I wasn't successful with that. I like these changes in this first paragraph. Who made those?
I made a whole bunch of edits to just streamline things and get rid of a lot of passive language and so forth.
Good.
I didn't add in new concepts or anything like that. I just wanted to make it less jargony and more readable. It's still, in my opinion, going to need another pass or two, but that's all that is. Most of that is. It's not substance.
Okay.
I would suggest that perhaps we should focus on the items that's like still require group discussion, where we have an open question, and just leave copy editing tasks to.
Yes,
I think someone can
Agreed.
accept these changes. So I'm just going to scan through and see where I find a point where we had an open question.
Thank you.
That's one there.
Yeah, so here's one. This is the recommendation on working groups, and we noted it should go under a different heading. Shouldn't be listed first.
Elise, what heading did you use on your presentation for that?
I actually don't have it under a particular heading. It's more like miscellaneous. Like there's the policy on working groups and reinstatement of the recreation board and CPAC that are kind of lingerers.
Okay.
I'm just taking a
Somewhere
little.
towards the end would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I agree too, because it's
This
just
is
kind
big.
of this a little foster child, but but it's important, but particularly because, as we said, it's such an ambiguous name within the world.
I would suggest that we move, as indicated earlier on this, that we move both the centralized entity and this towards the end, and we put them both under something like governance, structure of governance, or something like that. Because what we're really talking about is who coordinates the administration of this stuff and what kind of entities are we talking about and do we want to support and propose. So I think that those two things go well together. One is about the external management of all the boards and commissions and support and service to all of them, and the other is about the internal management. Does that make sense to people?
It makes. I agree with that organization. I'm not sure if I tend to prefer the heading like operations over governance, but I agree that those two go together. And I'm not entirely sure why I think governance doesn't quite fit. But I guess it's because I don't think that internal operations are necessarily called governance, whereas, working groups, I could see it for that piece.
You're correct on that.
Well, call it organization or call it structure or whatever. I mean, I'm not wed to the term governance, but I think that conceptually these two things go well together. One about managing from outside the boards and commissions, and one from managing inside.
FYI, Jack's going to be here in about 10 minutes.
Jack's here.
Oh,
Yeah.
look at him. There he is. Hi.
Okay, so unless anyone objects, I'm not going to try to move this live on the call because I'll get confused, but I'm just going to make a note of
That's
today's
good.
meeting. Move this section and coordinating body to a heading tentatively titled operations.
Beautiful.
Oh,
Operations, but that's okay.
yeah, I've opened other suggestions on it. What was your alternate suggestion, Nina, just so I can capture it here?
It was governance, but I'm not wed to that either. Structure, management, whatever.
All right.
We can come up with a good term.
Yes.
But they're essentially subcommittees, aren't they, of the boards and commissions?
Well,
No,
I think that gets
subcommittee
complicated.
is I'm
Or
sorry,
a
Patrick.
quasi committee or
And the other thing to remember is we're trying to group this with the item up here on the coordinating body. We'd like to put these two together under
Okay.
some subheading that joins the two ideas together. It's internal and external management of how boards do work.
Or organization or support or structure or yeah.
The
Support group?
Urban Trail Committee that I serve on, they want to, it's now it is up under the auspices of the Public Arts and Culture Commission, and they want to make it a working group which has no authority, no administrative support, no funding streams of any type. Subcommittees have some structure. So, the working group, there's nothing to say that it's going to last for any time. They could just say at any moment in time, you're done, that sort of thing. So it's very, not there kind of thing. It's
Uh,
just
Is
bunch
there
of
any,
people. It's like us. I mean, that's what we are.
is there any disagreement in the group about deprecating working groups? I thought we were in alignment, all in alignment on that.
I would say our recommendation here is pretty clear. We're suggesting the city eliminates the use of the term working groups, but we propose two viable structures where they can create formal subcommittees or they can create informal discussion groups, which are informal, but it lacks the confusion of the term working group.
Dee, you have your hand up? You're on mute.
No, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I-
You're on mute again.
I'm sorry. I have some technical difficulties here. Can you?
You come on for just a second or two and then you go back to mute.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Hopefully you can hear me now.
Yes.
One of the things that I've witnessed even in reparations is you've got, and not only this group, but a number of boards and commissions that I've seen. And I think the thing from council is that they become sort of a purpose unto themselves and don't deliver a whole lot. There's a lot of that going on, and I'm going to be very frank with you. I've seen a lot of the way, particularly with the Reparations Commission, the Human Relations Commission, and several of these other commissions that have been together.
Dee, hold on a second. We're not, you're breaking up so, Dee, you're breaking up so much. We're not able to understand you. Maybe you should close down and come back in.
Right in, but I've got.
You're back on mute. We can't hear
Dee, can
you.
you maybe put comments in the chat?
Them to you later on. I'm probably going to have to leave, so I'll let you go on with that. But most of us are pretty tired of it. A lot of these boards and commissions have absolutely no functionality. They prolong a lot of discussion. There's been very little that we've derived, especially the Black community, and it is just. I will send those to you. So thank you very much.
Just one question. Are you talking about working groups specifically or going up to the higher level of boards and commissions?
Most of the boards and commissions that I see need to be working groups because they don't deliver a whole lot and they don't actually, I'm going to be very frank with you. They don't operate off data. I'm dealing with a lot of that right now. They're data averse. They don't deliver a whole lot. I've noted that a lot of them even are counterproductive to council goals. The Human Relations Council is one that I have been sorely disappointed with, and some things that we've had to contain as far as personnel violations, personnel policy violations, and contracting obligations with the state of North Carolina and legal violations as well. The Reparations Commission has probably turned council off more than a lot of things of late, being that they probably wanted to sunset, and I don't blame them, in that they have gone on for 2 years and they want 6 more months. I don't think council, and basically I'll send those to you if I'm able to. I'm not bound by personnel policy, so I can address some of the specifics, particularly as it happened with the Human Relations Council, the Reparations Commission. Some of these people on council and staff are bound by personnel policies. I'm not. I'm kind of different. So I'll try to be as specific as I can, but I want to hold the process up and I may be leaving shortly. So thank you for your time. I will send those.
Thank you. Well, I think we are covering some of your concerns in the recommendation about the review of the boards every so often, on a rotating basis, and also the recommendation with evaluating their goals and where they're going. And I think too, the recommendation about getting their recommendations in front of council. And then the fourth one too is on the manual, which would then tell them if they're not going off of data, maybe part of the problem is that they don't know how to get the data, or if there's a contractor that, or they need to pay for services to get the data they need in order to make the decisions that they need to make. That should be part of that manual about how you go about getting funds to do that sort of thing. So I think we're addressing some of those. So when we get, after this meeting, if you could review these recommendations and see if you think that they're written strongly enough, that would be great. That's good, Jack. Jack thinks we need to increase the use of the word accountability in this document. That's
I was actually
point.
impressed by how often I ran into it. I think it's an important value that gets mentioned a lot of times. So
Okay.
I'm going to scan down for the next one where we need some discussion. I'm not sure if this is one. This was not. This was one for me to rewrite. I know that there's a few in here where we indicated we have actually need to make a decision about where we want to go on certain topics. Here's
whether we want to even include them, correct?
yes.
Okay.
This was one.
I think we can
Yeah.
take this out now.
Yeah, I agree.
That was one of the
Opposed to that.
early recommendations, but with all the other stuff that we have in place, that can be removed. Dee, you had a comment? You're on mute, darling.
I'm so sorry. Yes, I did. There has been a performance audit of one of the specific boards that the city runs, the MCCF fund, and there is a recommendation that the city and the county are looking at, and they're talking about doing performance audits of boards and commissions. And this first board and commission, we sent the data from that particular board to the consultant. And the recommendation was that, and I think it's going to come into play more and more where these boards and commissions are going to have performance audits. So they're not really functioning the way that they need to, and they're not functioning with any quality as well. So it was kind of it was a little frightening. Let me put it that way. And one of the things that was recommended, and I think that board, the MCCF fund, which is a city and county board, is looking at discussing that. They have not as of yet, and it's been 6 months or longer. But some of the data that went out there that showed that board was not functioning, not just the board, but the procedures that they were using to the detriment, especially when you start talking about equity, was absolutely overwhelming. So I would say that you probably need to interface with the city, who has had a preliminary performance audit, and the county done on these boards and commissions, and look at the methodology that was used. And that's all that I say. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to note here, and now that I'm looking at this recommendation, I see that Jack did already rewrite this recommendation above, which includes a description of how board reviews should be conducted, eliminates the requirement that it's a third party, and includes that there's performance basically a performance evaluation. So I think the action we can take right here is we can just cut this recommendation. It's replaced by the one above. Does anyone have any concerns about that?
Good.
Okay. I think that's where we intended to
Jack.
go a week or
I
so
would have
ago.
concerns about a third party being excluded. We have I'm going to be very frank with you. We have a system here in this city and county. It is a good old boy system. If you're not aligned with that, I don't care how meritorious your recommendations are, they will be excluded, and so will you. We were just fortunate to be able to have the funding, and you know, and unless I'm reading it wrong, it does not allow third-party examiners to come in. But if it had not been for this third-party examiner, we would have been going on with the failures and all of the things that happened to us. I just do not think we're in a position, and I'll relinquish anything, but I've seen this failure come up over and over again, and it's because of the good old boy system that we have here. And I'm very much afraid of it because it leads to failure 99% of the time. So if that's an exclusionary phase statement to say no third parties brought in, I think it's worth spending the money to do that, because sometimes we can be very insular. And I've seen that happen. That's why we have such poor quality of boards and commissions here and their activities. Thanks a lot.
Dee, I think that was not an examiner, but to provide training and all for people who are serving on boards and commissions. It wasn't about coming in and actually examining the work of a particular board or commission. Am I correct on that, y'all?
No, we were talking about having external audits of performance. My hope would be that with a much better structured mission and goal process, training process, and reporting process, that the need for audits would be reduced gradually to very low levels and only be called into question if there was some kind of massive disagreement on the functionality of a board, in which case they might ask for a third-party audit or one might be required. But I think I think we need to consider, and we should be presenting these recommendations as a coherent body where they are only really effective if all of them get implemented. Because if they do just, oh, we'll do this one thing and this one thing and this one, they won't all work together the way they would to improve the functionality of the whole system.
Okay, I get it.
Stacy?
Yeah, Elise had said something about maybe we could just talk about internal or external usage. Jack, you had a comment, then Elise, and then Alan, did you want to comment also?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
So Jack, Elise, Alan.
Yeah, if Patrick, if you scroll down to the next page, I just inserted a sentence right here. Accommodations to further enhance the effectiveness, yada, yada. Accommodations should be made for hiring outside advisors or consultants to facilitate performance audits. And then go into our recommendation of the components that might or ought to be included. So I just added that accommodation sentence.
I think that's good.
I don't know if that helps, Dee.
Because my thing is that most of us know that things don't work right here. When we see the poor quality of results that are coming in, particularly as far as tangible outcomes of most of these boards and commissions, most of them are misdirected. They aren't held to accountability, nor do they have performance metrics. There's a lot of rhetoric that goes on without being charged by city council, and city council needs to charge these boards with outcomes that are tangible. And so that is one of the concerns that we have. And when we looked at even the funding, you know, the city of Asheville, and I've talked with the city manager and the county manager and the city attorney and the county attorney, is that when you spend public dollars and you empower these boards and commissions to perform a work, and they deliver the paltry results that we've got, especially, and I'm talking about not only for majority communities, but minority communities, that is a violation of federal law that relates to fraud, waste, and abuse. And we've got that back from the local governments, that a lot of these results there are none. And they are coming in with just, and you know, this group can do whatever it wants, but that is what I'm holding the city and county to, the governments themselves. They're spending this money. They're empowering these boards and commissions, not only just for minority economic development, but for everything. And the outcomes are very paltry. They're using staff time. I think the staff is indicative of just a lack of faith in the system and the lack of results. So, you know, y'all can do whatever you want. I think there's a group of us who are working to make sure that these folks start delivering. They have not been delivering, and we don't see the results. So the performance audit is going to be absolutely essential, and we're going to tie city government's hands on it, and also Buncombe County government, and they're going to have to comply. So I thank you for mentioning the performance audit. I've been all over the place, and I haven't had a chance to read a lot of stuff, but they're absolutely going to have to perform, or we will be going to the Inspector General's office in Washington, D.C. to make them comply for spending this taxpayer money to produce results. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Dee. Elise?
So I'm taking in everything that Dee said, and I agree with a lot of things she has to say, that there, in many cases, the boards haven't been charged appropriately, and that probably leads to, you know, not having very many results to show for it. Is because the city council hasn't really asked anything in particular, hasn't made that clear. And I firmly believe that this process of review that we're introducing will help to better establish what those charges are. And I do feel strongly that the boards should, at least, that we need to review them, that they should also be given the opportunity to have these more clear charges and then try to respond to that. As far as bringing in a third party to do this, you know, I think that we are introducing this idea here of doing board review on a regular basis. We provided some suggestions of particular characteristics to look at. Thank you, Jack, for setting out those details. So if the city were to bring in a third party to conduct this, we've kind of outlined what it is we hope that they would look at, or to do it internally. Here are the things we hope to look at. You know, if the city takes this recommendation, they're going to conduct it however they want to. Whether they want to pay somebody else to do it or they want to do it internally, like they'll decide how they want to do it. But I think we've provided a good baseline in terms of our suggestions about how that should be conducted. And most importantly, regardless of who performs this audit, I think we just need to make it clear that it should be transparent, public, and should be on a regular basis, and not like handpick certain boards to review and not do other ones. So I feel like, however it happens, it's really the transparency component and the data-driven component, which I think Jack has laid out some really good data points that should be considered here.
Yes, those are your bullet points are stellar, Jack. My favorite word today. Alan.
Yes, I want to address the term accountability, which is mentioned, I think, a little further down and throughout the document. But yeah,
Yeah,
enhanced transparency and accountability. And my comment is that accountability works both ways. And not only should the boards and commissions be held to a certain standard and be accountable to their charge and the what the council has come up with from its annual retreat in terms of goals for the given year, but city government needs to be held accountable too, because too often have I seen reports. I'll give you two examples. Reports given to council by a particular board, and there's no feedback at all to those recommendations that an advisory committee has made. So that's one example. Another was a meeting I attended last month that was a city committee, and two different members of city staff were supposed to deliver reports, and it was on their calendar, and neither of them were ready to give those reports, and all they could offer were excuses. So again, I think the city staff needs to be held accountable, and so does the council, but so should boards and commissions. So I think we need to think of there needs to be some balance there. It's my thinking.
Thank you. I agree with you that accountability is a two-way street without a doubt. Elise is asking if we can delete. I just lost your comment, Elise. Hold on.
Yeah,
Jack rewrote recommendation O. I think we can delete the original.
Please.
do you still see O on the document?
Yeah, it's just above this blue section that you're
Oh,
showing.
okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes, I think we can remove this. I mean, Jack's rewrite is an expansion and refinement of this, so we should cut this and then just accept this suggestion here.
Mhm.
It's still blue for some reason.
I wanted to just comment here for a second. I went through and added some footnotes trying to tally like the number of comments from the survey that supported some of these things. And I did actually count, and I was just looking at that last question that was like, what are your 3 recommendations? And out of all those comments, there were actually 11 comments that suggested a reduction in the number of boards. So I know like when I talk to other people about the work that we're doing, I'm like, we're not suggesting that any particular boards get cut. I think we're establishing a process by which that could be done if the review of the board necessitates that. But it needs to be transparent, public, and there needs to be an official dissolution. Since these boards were established with a resolution, there needs to be an actual resolution that's announced at a city council meeting, actually dissolving it, instead of this like under the table, oh, we're just going to staff's going to stop scheduling them.
I like the words there review process, and there has to be a process that's followed, that's consistent among all boards.
Right. And I think that's what people found so disconcerting 2 years ago, was that it was just, boom, this is how we're going to do it. 4 buckets, and, just see which bucket you're in and we'll go from there. And I think that's what people found to be so disconcerting. And and no lack of critical thinking involved in what would happen with the work of those groups that was being done, etc. So at least this gives us a process. And if they're not doing anything, that should come up pretty quickly. And you can say, or it can be said that XYZ, we reviewed this.
Oh, we lost Stacy.
that they're doing would be better handle XYZ. Okay, everybody froze up on me.
Yeah, you cut out there for a second, Stacy.
You get my drift. Okay. Okay, so now Jack has turned to black just recently. How amazing. So that's a accepted section. Take a fiction of the action with regard to starting recreation and citizens police advisory.
Yeah, so
I do
I
like
just
that
wanted
we
to know.
included this in the presentation because I do think it can't just wallow over here in no man's land. Something needs to be done, said. If they're going to eliminate them, then they need to have the strength of conviction to say that out loud.
My question on this recommendation is, do we know, it says it should move to another section. Should that go with the operations section with the coordinating body and working group policy, or is there another place it could move to?
I don't
think
have
that's-
any problem with it going to the operational thing.
I think that's a good choice.
Okay.
Similarly, there's also a discussion about joint working groups / discussion groups, which I think should probably be, when talking the recommendation about collaboration between boards. I think that if they're going to do collaboration, they should do it in a formalized manner, and there should be expectations for how that collaboration functions and is structured. And it should probably be in the form of a subcommittee, not a informal discussion group or a whatever. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but
Yeah, Nina, can you raise that again? There is a section on board collaborations. I just want to make sure I capture it when we're down there.
okay.
Elise, you were the one who was talking about these discussion groups. Do you want to elaborate on how you think that would play out? First, let's hear what Dee was.
Well, basically, the only way that I generally agree to serve on a lot of these boards and commissions, because I pretty much lost faith in a lot of them, because they are so good old boy and good old girl oriented, is that they have to be strike forces. They have to be something that's set up to achieve a tangible purpose within a specified time, and they have deliverables. Most of these boards and commissions, I've watched them function, and I'm underwhelmed. I'm going to be very frank with you. I think council tolerates a lot of them. I've seen poor outcomes from a lot of them, especially of late. I'm going to be very frank with you. I am, based on some of the boards and commissions that I've witnessed and some of the things that went on where a lot of the folks weren't properly trained about contracting protocol, who probably committed some marginal abuses of contracting procedures, but with the general statutes, is that they feigned ignorance, and that was a result of council not properly charging them. That is the Human Relations Council. There were some personnel protocol violations that led to folks getting terminated, and the city council is cannot speak to that. I was there, and I have the documents and understand what did go on. It happened quite a few years ago. They learned a lot, and it turned a lot of people off. Not only that one, the Reparations Commission is another recent memory where you've got folks, and and I don't know whether they're trying to be racially accommodating or whatever, but it tends to go on and on ad infinitum, and without staff recommendations being followed, without legal counsel recommendations. There's just a lot of things that turn people off. I'm just going to be very frank with you.
I appreciate that, Dee, but let
I'm
instead
done.
of,
You can go ahead. I'm
I know,
good.
but
I'm
let's
good.
but look at where we're trying to go. Those are things that have happened in the past. This document is trying to put us into the future and is trying to say whatever way we handled it in the past wasn't the greatest, and this is what we're recommending for the future, which we hope will make the committees more viable, make the members more accountable, make them more engaged, and do this with all of them working under a certain set of expectations that will get them hopefully to where we want to go with our community. And I agree with you that things have not worked so well in the past, and some of the examples you brought up are true. I mean, it was horrible with human relations and all. But hopefully, this document and what we are trying to get the city to do will eliminate some of those failures. And I think that this is, and if you think that these recommendations, if there's a recommendation in here that is not going to move us forward, that's not addressing some of the things that we have done poorly in the past, then give us a heads up. But this is about how we're going to do things in the future.
And I appreciate that. But unless you recognize the damage has been done, and there are a lot of us out here who've been damaged by this process, there's been no reclamation, no reconciliation. These people have come forward to destroy people who have raised these issues, and it continues to go on. And I'm going to be very frank with you. We're all people. And, you can talk about turning over a new leaf, but when people destroy your reputation and they come after you as an individual because you've brought these issues to light, and then there's a new turning over, then how does that bring people back to process? I'm just wondering about that. Where is the reconciliation in that? And I don't know if there's a certain point, but there are people like me who brought this to council, who brought it to legal, how do you do this? How do you justify? How do you bring people who are taxpayers back to process, who've been excluded because they brought the same issues that you're bringing to the table and they were not recognized? What is that? And then there are no results to show for what y'all are talking about. These commissions and these committees go on to this day and don't produce anything. How does that, I guess, and I'm done with that and let y'all go on with it, but
well, but Dee, don't you think that if city council and city staff are waiting to hear what we are recommending, and they are very much aware of where we are in this document, they already know where we stand on these issues, and they are putting off making any other changes in this structure until we get this to them in a formal document with a formal request other than doing a whole nother series on reconciliation.
I don't even want to do it. That's
Which,
fine.
I don't know that how we can go there.
I understand, and I'm a realist, but I am just I just don't see how you can go from 0 to 100 and bring people along when the wrongs that have been done have not even been properly addressed, and the truths have not been properly addressed. Most of these boards and commissions that you're talking of, Stacy, still function without delivering anything. And I understand that your recommendations are going forward, but all of this is just academic. I mean, and I don't want to protract it. I'm going to leave the conversation and go on, but the harm is still being done. So I don't know what else to say, but I thank y'all for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dee. And I do hope that this will put board chairs and staff liaisons on notice that we've got to get to a point of these boards and commissions doing something of value that improves our community and not just sitting there and chewing up staff time and chewing up volunteer time to the point that people get frustrated and they don't have a good experience because they're not moving forward. So I hope this is going to change this. That's all any of us can do is hope that this will bring about some cultural changes within the city staff and within our city council, and that we can hopefully get a more highly functioning boards and commission structure. Thank you, darling. Elise, you had something to say?
I was asked a question, but I don't remember what it was anymore.
I'm so sorry. So, okay, move that one to operations.
Yeah,
Next
this
one,
one,
Patrick, please.
I think we've got an answer here. There is another one for us to discuss right down here. This
Hold
one,
on. Elise, wait 1 second. Elise, thanks for putting in these footnotes. I think this is a great help for us. Thank you. Go ahead.
yeah, so I just wanted to know, this is one for us to discuss. This item was about presentations from boards to either council committees or all the way to city council. I think we have some different opinions as to what that process should look like. So up here, these are basically just several recommendations that were independent. And what I think would be most helpful for the group is if we could evaluate these two blocks here, kind of one option or the other, and see if we as a group have consensus as to which of these we'd like to include.
Okay, Nina, give us just 1 second, okay? Okay. Any discussion on your preference for statement 1 or statement 2? Nina, oh, excuse me, Nina. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually prefer the original language. I think it's the only thing I would do to change it basically is to say a draft recommendation. I would say we also propose that each committee have a scheduled presentation. They can either, they should have an opportunity to present at least once a year.
Nina, can you clarify what you mean by the original language?
Well, you're offering two consolidation options. I prefer the list of things which you're trying to consolidate. I don't. I guess I think if anything, we could be, we could be even more specific about the scheduling and whether it is mandatory or optional but we do discuss the process by which recommendations go to council, and we could use a similar process and structure for the reporting process as well. I mean, I think that they're similar in that they're part of oversight. And so I would follow the same structure as those two recommendations.
I have a question on the first option,
Go
and
ahead.
that is the use of regularly present. That's fairly imprecise, and I think we need to be more decisive in terms of what the expectation should be. As we do say once per quarter and once per year for the council, but we lack, on the first one, we lack that precision in terms of designating how often. So what is regularly present? Who's to determine that? But I also want to say that once per quarter may, for council committees, may, I think at least biannual rather than once per quarter, but once per quarter is pretty frequent. Every 3 months you need to make a report. I don't know. I'm not sure the boards and the commissions are always have enough to present on a quarterly basis to a council committee. That's something that the committee would be looking for. Biannually, I think makes sense.
You mean twice a year or every other year?
Oh, I'm sorry, not biannual. I mean, every 6 months is twice a year. So I'm waiting.
Council meets twice a month or once a month?
Council committees?
Council itself.
Oh, council? Twice a month.
Twice a month
Twice a
in the
month.
busy months.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
probably
Once per
22
year
times
is
a year.
fine if they could do a 10-minute report. But I don't know how council can accommodate that many committees reporting.
That's what I'm wondering too.
It would take up an entire council meeting.
Right. Hold on. I'm trying to see what y'all are writing here. So,
I've got to head out.
okay. Elise, go ahead.
I was just gonna pipe in to say that I prefer the version where the board should be expected to make a presentation at least once per year to the council committee at least once per year, and that at that time the committee could vote to advance their presentation to a regular meeting. I think for a board that only meets once a month to present quarterly is too frequent.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go along with that. Your recommendation, Elise.
Me too. Nina has left.
Nina specifically preferred this broken out version, so I'm just trying to understand what the broken out version captured differently. Whereas Patrick kind of, instead of just these 4 individual sentences, has made them flow into a paragraph. So I'm trying. I wish she was able to stay for a moment longer because I want to understand what is missing in this proposed version 1 that that the bulleted sentences captured instead.
That's what
And
I
will
was.
just.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to note all of our other recommendations are in paragraph form. This, we could just join these sentences together, but it's going to wind up having to be in that format.
Patrick, can you just put a note that just says that? So if Nina does look back at this, she'll see that. So she'll know that we've not ignored her comments.
I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure which version we're settling on here, though. I'm happy to add those notes. I just want to make sure I'm not clear which of
Lisa,
I
these
do
three
think I like,
recommendation?
I think I like statement 1 better than statement 2 that's highlighted in gray.
Yeah, and Elise refined it a little bit too.
Right.
Didn't you?
Well, I also supported version number 1. I'm wondering if in order to get some of these details that are missing, we might add the part about one board presentation at every council committee meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So now we're saying, can we take this paragraph here, this first one, merge in what's missing from above, and wind up with a result that's.
I think we've captured everything that's above.
I think the one we're missing, I think what Elise just noted was this sentence.
Yeah, every council meeting.
This is schedule 1 presentation at every council committee meeting.
Committee meeting, I mean, I'm sorry, yes. That's what Elise.
And
That's
as
right.
well, we specify in like the bulleted sentences, making sure that there are scheduled opportunities on the city council agenda. But the difference between the rewrite version 1 and rewrite version 2 is the cadence of that. If it's per quarter to the committee and year with the council versus just every year to the council committee, and if getting the support of the council committee going to council. So I feel like we're all on board with the reduced schedule that's presented in version rewrite number 1. Is that correct?
Correct.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then Nina was just wanting to clarify some of these specific points about how that schedule is going to be met. And it can only be met if staff are intentional about providing opportunities on the committee schedules, the council committee schedules.
So I think what I'm wondering is, since I think I hear where we're headed, I cut the second version. Here's the kind of bulleted list above, and here's the paragraph below where I copied in those 2 additional sentences. Does this capture everything? Should we just leave it as is drafted above, or does this paragraph format work? At least in concept, if not by language.
Yeah,
I agree.
we can massage the second version a little bit. Dee, do you think by putting a public light, a spotlight on these boards and commissions at these city council meetings will help with some of your concern about them not doing anything or them not being transparent about the work that they're doing and that sort of thing? Do you or don't you think that that's going to help?
I think city council lead, and they need to be sold on their role in leadership. They're the ones who are going to charge not only the boards and commissions, but also the staff with making sure that these boards and commissions deliver. I don't think they've been properly inculcated nor educated about how these boards and commissions should function. And that is the reason why all these people who serve don't even know what they're supposed to be doing. I've gone to so many of these, and I am just left absolutely speechless at the lack of direction. So to answer your question, Stacy, it has to come from city council. I don't know whether they need to hear a presentation by UNC School of Government. I don't know what it is, but these boards and commissions are absolutely not producing. They're really not, and they're not delivering the way that they should be. They go on ad infinitum. And when I go to the meetings, I am absolutely stunned by the lack of tangible results and how misaligned they are with strategy and city council. So I think that's a conversation that y'all probably need to have with council, and also, if you can, convince them that they need to have on a higher level, because it's not working.
Okay. Elise?
I'm wondering if when we get to the section about like mission and goals, I I understand where D is coming from, that there's a lack of results. And I think part of that issue is because council is not clear about what they want. And it's not necessarily the fault of the board if they're not getting clear direction. You know, if you're trying to train your dog to do a trick, but you keep like jumbling around like how you're asking them to do it, you're not going to get good results. So maybe we need to add some language in the goals part where we really put the accountability on council to be clear with the boards on what they want.
And that's what I meant when I said accountability works both ways.
Exactly, right. That's where I was going, Alan. That's good.
And
Okay.
hopefully these presentations are another opportunity for when the board, you know, leadership is directly in front of the council committee to get some of that feedback and get kind of like a mid-year redirection on how their work is going.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too that the council liaison, whoever is assigned to that particular committee, maybe this would encourage them to be more involved too, to at least show up for a committee meeting or something every so often. Because I know on transportation, public transportation, they only came when we actually we asked them to specifically and said, we have to have you at this meeting to help us make this decision. And then they would come. And I think we got Brownie there 3 times in 1 year. And I think that was a record or something. I mean, they don't seem to go to those meetings that they're the liaison for. And and I think that's part of why we've ended up where we are right now. Okay, so we've got this highlighted, some of these things that we just actually just cut and pasted, and that'll help us move forward and massaging that statement, the new statement. Patrick, make sure that we're clear that we're deleting what's above. It's the original.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Quick question, Stacy.
Uh-huh.
Do we say anything about I think Elise just brought it up. There's a staff expectation too, that they are participatory in this process.
Good point.
Do we address that at all?
It's not showing up in my head, and I don't think we're pretty light on the way we're directing staff in these recommendations, which is probably, on one hand, that's probably good because that's not our bailiwick. You know, we can talk volunteer to volunteer, elected official to voter, and that sort of thing. Telling city manager how to run her staff is another thing. But when we get down to some of those others in the goal setting and all of that sort of thing, I think maybe we could bring in staff input into that, maybe some more.
But we did spend time surveying staff, so
right.
Aren't we responsible then, if needed, to make a recommendation that addresses some of these issues? And should we not be clear about that?
Good point. Yeah, let's
think about that.
Yes, good point. Good call, Alan. D, you had a statement?
I did, and basically, you know, when we came up with the performance audit for city and county government, nobody had ever challenged them heretofore. The only thing that we did, and I'm going to be very frank with you, we start talking about cutting somebody's money off, they start listening to you. Okay?
Yeah.
So you cannot use city and county money, taxpayer money, to deliver no results. Okay? That is what we call fraud, waste, and abuse. We had a very specific conversation. Okay,
you've been very clear on that.
The staff I'm glad, because the staff follows the directive of the city manager, as does the city, and the city manager follows the directive of elected representation. They very Deborah Campbell, we had a very tacit conversation about that. And the job, and legal counsel as well, the job is to make sure that the taxpayer dollar is being spent the way it's supposed to, and that's to produce results. And so you need to have don't be afraid of imposing and talking about making the staff and all of that, but that is their responsibility. And if you have to imbue them, the elected leadership with that, then you do. And I don't mean to protract the point, but I think we've kind of let that go by not having expectations that results are delivered down the line. There's enough of the good old boy stuff that does nothing. That's just all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Patrick, where do we stand? Next one?
Yeah, I think there was one more down here that we still needed to discuss, which was around expanding eligibility.
I wish Nina had
What's
stuck
that?
around to be able to talk about this one.
Yeah.
More.
We might want to push this. We might want to push this one until Nina's here, or.
Well, and I'm okay retracting this one. You know, my intention with this would be to get the input from people who've been displaced from Asheville, but I understand that this might have negative effects unless it's like really finely tuned. So, you know, if we maybe expand upon the recruitment piece where we're, you know, saying that the clerk's office needs to take a really concerted effort to reach out to those underrepresented communities, then I think that's a more targeted approach to get the type of representation that we're hoping for. And we don't need to expand it to the county unless we're really not getting the representation from within the city. But it sounds like the representation is there, like the people are there, they just need to be reached out to better. And we need to prioritize that over expanding out, making the pool bigger.
Right. And you saw in Maggie's note back to us from our last meeting that they're starting to send their deputy and assistant clerks to some of these community meetings and encouraging folks to sign up. So, you know, they're reaching out, they're going to these community meetings, which presumably are people who are more engaged than your next person and might be encouraged to join some of these boards and all. So it'll be interesting to see, but I applaud them for doing that because it's a good place to start. That's for sure.
I will say though that going to neighborhood meetings to try to recruit people, like you're missing out on those people who don't have the luxury of having that extra time to, you know, do your neighborhood involvement stuff. And you kind of have to go, if you go out to the neighborhood groups, you're going to be getting probably a lot of the same people that are already involved in other ways. And you really have to try a little more intentionally to get the voices that aren't heard naturally.
I don't know about that. I was thinking that with the neighborhood groups, it's like the folks that when I was in Haw Creek, and I still go to some of the Haw Creek stuff because our church is there. Those folks, I see a lot of them who are involved in city level stuff, but I also see a lot of folks who aren't, that are very much involved in just what's happening in the Haw Creek area. And I think it might be a stepping stone. You know, they get involved on that neighborhood, smaller geographic footprint, and then, you know, hopefully might move up through the system, which would be, which is good because they've got some basis of knowledge. They're not coming in totally green in how some of this community action work works. Patrick, your comment, the difference in experience is what our recommendations should address. Are you talking about this particular recommendation that we're looking at right now?
No,
just
that was
general?
actually that was to Elisa's comment that Elisa served on boards where liaisons are
Oh.
highly active.
Yeah.
Other people have had quite the opposite experience, and my hope is one of the desired outcomes of this report is standardizing the parts that work well and stopping the parts of the process that don't work.
And Elise, you're talking about council liaisons?
Yes.
Oh, good. You're lucky.
Yeah, sorry, that was like several discussions
Yeah.
ago.
Okay. All right.
And if I could, I just wanted to say that like this residency recommendation, like I can see both sides of it. I will just say as someone that's lived a number of places in Asheville, like especially when you go to areas like down Sand Hill Road in West Asheville, like you can be in the city on one side of the street and out of the city on the opposite side, and part of that's from the city's inability to annex. So I'll just say working in other community groups, there's a lot of people who have very strong ties to Asheville that might live just outside city limits. And that's why I feel like the city should give preference to city residents in filling vacancies. But I think expanding eligibility, I actually think this is a good recommendation and I would support it.
Thank you. Let me just read it through one more time. Hold on, Elise. Okay. Your comments, Elise?
I was just going to say well, just two personal experiences. A member of MMTC moved outside of the city and had to give up their position. And then I had another member of NAC who had just got reappointed to another like 3-year term. He and his partner had purchased a house outside the city and moved outside the city. And he was completely intending to vacate his position. And then he was told by the clerk's office that that he could remain in his seat. And if you actually read the like rules more closely about boards and commissions, it says a member in good standing who leaves the city can still stay in their position. So there is that caveat there. I don't know if that wasn't explained fully to the member of MMTC who left, or if he just assumed that he, I don't know if he was given misinformation, if he assumed or what happened, but he vacated his seat. To Patrick's point, I'm wondering if we can just add a line about just kind of reminding the people who are vetting these applications that if someone applies who's living outside the city, if we're having trouble getting certain voices to the table, that they should consider those applications from those people who live outside the city, especially when voices are getting to the table that otherwise wouldn't be heard. Maybe just like sliding a little bit into something else.
Dee?
Yeah, thank you. I'm not averse to people from the outside being allowed, but most city and county boards have that bailiwick. They have the ability to weigh the rules to bring people in when they want them. There's been a lot of displacement due to economic circumstances from the city limits. I don't feel any particular way about that, other than the city and county governments can do whatever they want. They have the ability to waive whatever requirement that they have. And they generally do it if they want you. But if that brings, as y'all say, more voices in, I'm good. The only thing that I do is sacrifice to pay my property taxes here in the city of Asheville to stay here. So I'm good with it, but you need to know that they do whatever they want to do if they want you. Thanks.
True. When we were doing some updating to Leslie's class that she teaches, we did clarify that essentially, unless it is otherwise noted, a city board or commission can have members who live outside the city limits unless it's specifically stated in that charter that it can only be city residents. So I think we're good in encouraging this, and particularly if it brings unrepresented or underrepresented voices to the table.
So for this one, should I just note we want to revise the language?
Yeah, just evaluate it, make sure that we're.
Yeah, I think rather than just broadly saying we're going to go ahead and accept all the applications from people in the county as well, I think we should just offer this as a tool when to try to get those other voices if
Right.
they're not getting it just through the within the city limit applications.
Right. Okay, Patrick, where do we stand at 6:55?
I think that was all of the ones that those were all the ones I saw that said we need to discuss this more. So I think there's still some language work. If anyone remembers another one, let me know, but we are short on time.
If you scroll back up closer to the top, the goals in green, there was one there that I highlighted was a pending recommendation about meetings between staff and board chairs.
Oh, what there was that
Right,
it?
yeah.
Further go down some more, Patrick.
No, that's the one right there. The
Oh.
AA. Yeah.
Oh, this one. Oh, okay.
Just it was still listed as pending, so I didn't. We should probably make a decision, either yay or nay.
Well, I think this goes back to what we were saying earlier to get staff, because I'm reading your footnotes. Hold on. Did staff comment on? No, I don't think staff said too much about their relationship with council. But this might be a good starting point for us to just address what staff's role is, or encouraging staff, or beefing up where we think staff needs to assert themselves more. Jack?
Yeah, I guess my question is, we're calling them, quote, lead staff. Are they really in a position to express alignment with council goals and the board charge and mission?
They should, because their job performance is tied to it, the way I understand it.
All right, I guess what powers do they have in that regard?
It would be their level of knowledge as to what goals council has. They're probably the best in tune with that, other than council itself. And because when I see lead staff, I'm thinking of your middle and upper management staff within the departments. And at least in my discussions with them, they seem pretty clear on where staff wants to go, and the way they talk in their retreats, it sounds like they're trying to tie it in. But what do y'all think?
I kind of like this statement if it would help staff better prioritize the importance of meeting, and chairs too, of meeting together to address these kinds of issues of alignment with council goals. So I hope it would lead to a greater responsibility on both sides and better communication.
Elise, what do you think?
I was just going to say that this seems like another one of those cases, kind of like with the council liaison, where it really depends on those staff members, like how interested they are in having these kinds of conversations. Because I mean, me personally, I'm currently serving as the NAC chair, and those staff members did reach out to me, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to get together and have, coffee sometime and talk about this kind of stuff?" And at the end of that conversation that we had, they're like, "We're hoping to do this more regularly, that it doesn't have to just be about like the agenda setting meetings that we have before the meetings, but we have more of these conversations like being that are being suggested here."
Yes.
So I guess, with it being kind of dependent on who those people are and maybe who the officers are, if they're interested in participating in that, maybe there just needs to be like a culture change where that is encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly
I think that's exactly where we want to go, where staff is saying, okay, board chair, let's get together, let's talk about, how we're going to make all this happen in the next 365 days kind of thing. That's great to hear, actually. Patrick?
Yeah, I was just going to note this sounds, especially based off the story Elise just shared, sounds like another one of those tools that happens sometimes isn't used across the board. I can see why that would be helpful. So I'd propose just making this a recommendation. I think we should include it, and I think perhaps we work with the language to make sure it's clear.
Agree.
I agree. Anything else?
We need to determine when we're going to meet again.
I know. What are y'all doing Wednesday night? Let me see if I've heard back from Maggie. Hold on. Sometimes she writes me at night.
And in between meetings, I mean, whatever is left to be done, we need to like assign to specific people to do the things.
No, I've not heard from Maggie.
I would say
So
our regular meeting would be next Monday on the 16th. If we want to keep that date, we could meet again next week, if that's helpful.
I have it on my calendar. Anybody else have a problem? I will go through and adjust to be active language. Both on this and on the presentation that Lisa and I were talking about that before you got with this, Patrick. Jack, what about you? I know you're raising your hand to offer to do something.
Yes, I am. I'm thinking about what Alan suggested, that we bring the survey of the staff into this, and I will attempt to do what Elise did with the member survey. And
Okay.
bring some supporting footnotes into the document.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much. Patrick, when you send out the meeting notice tonight, can you put these job responsibilities next? And can you, next to Nina's, can you ask her to do some proofreading, since she did some, if she could just continue on with that?
Yes, yeah. So you want me to ask Nina to proofread? Jack is going to add in staff survey footnotes. All right.
Mm-hmm.
What other jobs do we have, and who wants to do them?
We do need to address Elise's presentation.
Oh, that's right. Alan, you had a couple of comments you wanted to.
Yeah, but I think we could make those during the meet. They're short and just wordsmithing a little bit, so we could make those when we address that presentation. That's all right, Elise.
Yeah. So if we meet again next week, that's going to be the 16th. I'm trying to count how many Mondays we have between now and our when we think we'll be on the schedule. It's 1, 2, 3. There's 4 Mondays between now and then. Now on Monday the 23rd, that's our NAC retreat. So I'm not available that day, but I'm wondering if we spend like another meeting, maybe 2 at most, looking at the report, and then 1 meeting like finalizing the presentation. Does that sound good to everyone?
Hold on a second. If we meet on the 16th, you think we could meet on the 19th? If whatever we do on the 16th, does that give us enough time to do what we say we're going to do on the 16th?
I think the simplest way would be just to look at meeting every Monday if needed together. We could look at other days in the week if needed, but it kind of sounds like we even have enough time, even if it was once a week between now and the 8th.
Right. Well, and we can meet on the 23rd. We'll feel like we don't have a whole arm since Elise is not there, but we could still meet and do some cleanup and stuff. Let's do that, Patrick. Does
Okay.
that meet with everybody else?
Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
So the 16th and the 23rd would be document focused, and then the 30th would be present. I guess we can do a little bit of presentation stuff on the 16th too, but then the 30th might be all present, mostly presentation, a little document.
Yes.
I think
Okay.
so.
5:30 to 7. And then it's the following week on Tuesday. That's the boards and commissions meeting. So we could meet like the night before if we want.
Right.
Which is what date?
The 7th.
Okay, I might be in a car, but let's go for it.
I mean, hopefully it'd be brief. I hope we're not like changing anything crazy at the 11th hour.
Me too.
But it might be nice to just like touch base.
Okay. Elise, are you thinking of adding in some charts and stuff onto your presentation?
What type of chart were you hoping to see?
Whatever you thought was best.
Well, I mean, at this point, like,
I was really just looking for different ways of presenting some of that data. But if you don't think it's important, then that's fine.
I guess I can certainly understand that there's a lot of text to be read on them right now. I think our presentation, our earlier presentation was mostly focused on the data stuff, and so given that this is recommendation based, it seems
you're right. That's a good point.
Pretty text heavy. I could see about breaking some of them apart.
Don't worry about it.
I tend to feel presentations always like it feels like you don't have enough time to get to everything you want. So I would say just focus on the content of the recommendations, even though that means it'll be a lot of text.
Right.
And how it's laid out right now, I kind of have on the left side, what were the findings that then support our recommendations that I put on the right side. We could take out the findings text and could just be spoken aloud verbally to make more room for just the recommendations. But then you lose, if someone's just looking at the presentation, they then lose the context for the recommendation.
I like the way it's set up with the relationship.
Yeah, I like
between the
having
two.
yeah, I agree, Alan. I like having the why are we making this recommendation there? I think that's good.
Yeah,
And
provides the context.
right. And people, what's the word? Process information differently. Some people like to hear it, some people like to read it. So it might be better to have it both ways.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, folks, every Monday.
Okay.
every Monday.
See you soon. Thank you so much.
Night.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye. Bye. Patrick, can you send me the chat box?
Yes. Yep. Let me stop the recording here. And